Good morning, my painter friends. This is a Monday morning, and we know how Monday mornings can go, but so far, for me, it's going great. You never know, right? Well, today, what I wanted to do was an exercise with you. I want to show you, although I have so many brushes, as most of us all do, after a while, but I'm going to take these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 brushes here. We have two sets, a set of round tipped, pointed tip brushes. We've got a fan brush. We've got a cat's tongue brush. We've got two flat brushes and one over here with a larger round tipped brush. And with those brushes, I want to show you how they do things, lines, how they each make a line, because a tree branch, a stem for a flower, grass and trees themselves, many objects are sticks. I forgot to change my water, but for this exercise, it just simply doesn't matter. So the first one I'm going to start out with, I've been using this little pad of watercolor paper I got the other day at Michael's for these exercises. It works really well. It's really pretty good water paper. It's watercolor paper, and it's 100 pound, 300 GM. It really works well. I really don't need this up for this. I need this to be more flat. Okay, so, and it's it's cold pressed. And as I've explained so many times, but I like to kind of get it in when I'm using them on a video, this is not a block. I did not buy it as a block. I just refuse to pay the prices that they charge when they just want to charge more for a block. So I take Mod Podge and I go all around the outside of this pad, leaving a little spot, and just go right around with a decent amount on your finger so that it all, it all covers those sides, and you let it dry. Perfect block. Just perfect. So all I need for right now is some brushes, one paint or whatever color paint, and my little paper towel, water, and we're going to go. So I'm going to start with this one. This is a Transon, which I explained in some other tutorials. I love these brushes. This is a round pointed brush, a kind of a large brush, number 14. Water on the brush. I'm going to go into blue, as you can see, blue so much better than lots of others. And with the tip of my brush, I'm going to put that tip down, and I'm going to do something like this. Press down, then press down even harder. Come up with the tip, press down again. And I don't have enough water on my brush. I didn't want it to run and stuff. So these are exercises that you do to make muscle, if I can talk, muscle memory in your hands. So we have, that's the size that's with this brush here. Now we're going to go down in size with this round tipped, and I'm also using a Transon. It's number 8. Get it wet. Go into the blue again. A little more water this time. And right beside it with this size, we're going to do the same thing. Come up, press down, come up on the tip, press down, come up on the tip, press down. These are excellent things to help you to get used to the brushes, and to also help your hands and your muscles to have the memory of what you're doing, so you don't have to think too much about it when you go to do it. That's that one. And then we're going to take the cat's tongue. I'm just going to use the one size of cat's tongue. I might grab the other one if it's near me. So I'm going to go into the blue again, get enough blue in there and enough water, enough paint on my brush and water, dab a little off. Now I'm going to come down. I can do the same thing. I don't have enough water and paint. Okay, hold on. We got to get it in there. Tip down, come up on the tip. It's going to look a little different. It's a little different kind of a brush, right? but I'm still doing the same exercise. Tip down, press down hard, come up. So it's the same kind of exercise, but with a different brush, so you're going to get a different effect, right? This is very beginner friendly, and that's what my tutorials mainly are for. I have a fan brush here, but that's not anything that I want to do right yet. So now I'm going to go to a flat brush. These are just flat brushes, they call them. All right? This is a half, 1/2. Go into the blue again. Some more blue, get a lot of paint on my brush and so forth. A little more water. And for the lines like we're talking about, we wouldn't want to go flat because, well, if we went flat, we'd get this. So we don't, you know, that is part of, you know, there are things you can use that for. A nice straight line. But with this size, that's the what line you're going to get. We can also use this part and do a line like this. My hand's not too steady this morning. So find whatever ways helps you to. A lot of times I rest my wrist and then it kind of, I move it along in that way and I seem to have more balance. I've just had coffee, so it kind of makes your hand a little shaky. Okay, now I'm not going to go into shapes because all we're doing in this one is the lines you can make with these different brushes. I use that, the chisel part it's called. Now I'm just going to use the corner of the brush. Okay, so we just want the corner. And we can make a straight line using a corner. I'm not very good at straight lines, especially like using the corner of the brush, but that's how that works. Each brush, depending on the shape of it, depending on the size of it, are going to give you different size lines, different size shapes. If I was making leaves or something, each one of these brushes would make a different size leaf. So now I'm going to take a flat one, but it's bigger. It's a 3/4 inch flat. See? I'm going to come into the blue again. Some water and some paint. We don't want it dripping though for this. Right on that chisel edge with this one, even though it's a bigger brush, if I use very light pressure, very, very light, if I press harder, I'm going to get a thicker line. So depending on how much pressure, very, very little here, I'm going to get a nice thin line, even though this is a bigger brush. Same thing with the corner here, you know. It's the same thing, it all applies. So the point of all this really is just that you can use a brush, all the brushes, for just about anything that you do. My water's getting pretty dirty here, so I don't want to put too much more. But you know what I'm going to do? We're going to have to change the water out. Okay, so I went and changed out my water before it drove somebody crazy that was looking at it. So anyway, that's that. Now, what I wanted to show you next was, this is going to be just about dry here in a couple of seconds because it's very thin layers of paint and it's on dry paper. So that's another little tip. You paint on wet paper with wet paint. It's going to take longer to dry. You paint wet paint with dry paper, it's not going to take as long to dry. That's kind of obvious, but when you're beginning, it's not obvious. And as I've stated over and over, my teachings are for very beginner. Now what I'm going to do with my fan brush here, I want to show you how lines, what grass is. Grasses are lines. That's all they are. So I'm going to wet my green paint here, take a little off, and right over what I've already got going, I'm going to set it down, flick Need a little more water. We don't want too much water, it will be muddy. So set it down, flick, flick, right over what I've got because it's dry. So we're gonna go get a little more there. Flick, flick, flick. It makes awesome grass. Lines, they're really lines, right? But I'm using this brush, which now looks like grass. Okay, that's what the fan brush does for lines. If I was trying to do lines with a fan brush, I mean, if I was, you can do this, you can make a line, you can do this, but we've got a lot of separated bristles here, so it's not going to make a fine line. It's not going to make a single line. That's why it's not really good for that, but it's great for trees. You can lay it down and you can make trees. That's just straight. I never make a tree like that, but I mean indicating, you know, just for an indication of what you can do. Get a little more paint there. It's kind of like a line, but it's not going to be solid like everything else, right? We flick these, get some nice brown. We flick, set it down and flick it. Like flick it up. Like this. Not too much pressure. I'm not putting a lot of pressure there. I don't need a lot of pressure. Just if I put a lot of pressure, it's going to be like this. With a little pressure, we've got just lines, grass. But the fan brush does such a great job of it because it makes it look more real. You know what I mean? It's like broken lines and they fan out, and so you can make nice grass with these fan brushes. So being that we're talking about lines today, the only other thing I was going to say is with the smaller brushes like this round tipped one here, for lines that are going to make a circle, okay, it'd be pretty hard to use the flat ones, but with these nice round ones and tips, we can, you know, draw some nice lines. Wow, my hands are not too steady today. Right? And go in here with this nice tip and make another round one right in the center. So those are lines, but they're in a circle, right? A box. These smaller brushes. Wow, I guess I better not have coffee right before I have a tutorial. All right, and then the other thing I wanted to show was that depending on the brush you have, depending how nice those tips are, these transom brushes have such a beautiful tip that I can use this larger brush, but because it has such an amazing tip, did I say that? Good, amazing. I can come over here and I can use that beautiful tip to make myself the lines for a circle. Just not very much pressure. Same for depending on how much pressure is how thick the line, wow, or thin the line will be. Definitely won't drink coffee before one next time. So you see, thin, thinner, thicker, thicker, thicker. So all in the way you press down on the belly of the brushes. When you're just using the tips, you're going to get something fairly fine if you have less pressure. It's the way you do a real nice thin line. Nice tip, certain very light pressure, not much at all. Every single object that we paint, when we paint, has some sort of object. Everything we paint, I mean, has some sort of object. A circle, a square, a rectangle, a triangle, you know. Everything we paint is basically an object. So the more you can learn how to master the light stroke or the thick stroke or the starting at a tip and then pressing down. Let's get a different color. Tip, tip and then press down with the belly. I just made a leaf, and that was this exercise, right? So they may take time. They may seem really boring, which they are in a way, but they're all to get your hands nice and prepared for when you actually paint. I mean, there is a real purpose to all of this. Thin line, very little pressure, even thinner line with a very, very tip of this thing. A little more pressure, a little more pressure, a little more pressure, a little. So again, I did it in blue, I did it in red, you can see it there. And that's that size brush. And of course, the smaller brush, but not always, because as I just showed you, this is a fairly big brush, but it has an amazing tip. So you can choose any brush you want to do all of these exercises and more. I mean, I can take, let's try, hold on, I wanted to find the Phillips, the Filberts, there we go. I always say that for that brush. Okay, here's one here. This is a Filberts, I think that's how you say that. And it's smaller and it's kind of flat, and then it rounds at the top, okay? This one also is good to practice, all the ones. It does tips, but you gotta be able to hold this brush with the tiniest bit of pressure to get a fine line, or it's going to be this, because you can't hold it for, you can't, you don't know that it has to be held very lightly. Sometimes the faster you go, the better you can do it. So that, very, very thin, all using the tip of this, because my hand has remembered from many times doing these things and painting that's how my mind and my hand connect. That's how I get that really thin line with this filbert, or this thicker line with this filbert, right? Can't see it, right? Thin or thick. That's on the edge. If I wanted to lay this down, we'd have, running out. But we can do these exercises, turn, pick it up, flat, oh, I lost the paint, okay, hold on. On its top, flatten it down, come back up, flatten it down, I'm twisting it. On here, turn, flat. So I'm doing the same kind of exercise, pick it up on the tip, then turn and flatten it down. I lost the color. So all these things are exercises to get your hands remembering how each thing has to be done. And all the brushes work that way. Those are the exercises you would use, even with a very tiny one, small one like this. It's going to be the same thing. Get some red, right, to go over the blue. Tip down, press down, tip up, press down, tip up. It's all the same exercises with whatever brush it is. Come up, press down, come up, press down. So it's really good to just zoom in and see what I'm doing. How am I holding this? And am I putting a lot of pressure? Or am I putting just a semi amount of pressure? A little amount of pressure. Tiny pressure, very light. Okay, so it all matters, and it's all for exercises to make you be a better painter in the end, no matter how boring it actually seems. Because at first it is really hard to make yourself do all these little exercises and practicing, because you want to paint, you want to get something on there that looks like something. But before you can actually get something that looks like something, you got to do these little exercises. Just think of it as more exercises, better painter. More exercises, better painter in the end, right? Step 1, step 20, or whatever, okay? all super important. And you want to be a better painter, not a painter stuck at the beginning on step 20. You want to have graduated to learning so many things and your hands getting so used to holding the brushes and then painting and putting your beautiful marks down, your strokes down for a beautiful painting, which I know you will be able to do. So I hope this has encouraged you folks. I really love encouraging people in painting because I remember my own daunting feeling at the beginning. In fact, it took me months and months before years actually, before I stopped telling myself I couldn't do it and tell myself that I was gonna do it and I was gonna start and I was gonna finish and keep going. So I did, and now I want to help you. So have a great rest of your day, folks. Check out my other tutorials, and bye for now.